Hello again, everyone. Today we're going to be talking about balancing packability and ease with taste and satisfaction when it comes to camp cooking. Hi there, everyone. Famous thru-hiker Andrew Skurka once said that there are hikers and there are campers. In other words, those who want to be comfortable while covering their miles and those who want to be comfortable while being in camp. The goals are different. Satisfaction from covering distance and seeing many places versus satisfaction from being in one place and lingering to soak in everything that particular location has to offer. If you spend 12 hours a day moving, making your pack as comfortable as possible is really important. But if you only spend 4 hours a day at moving, or maybe less, making camp as comfortable as possible becomes a major concern. One of the major considerations that flow from this hiking versus camping perspective is cooking. Looking at one extreme, if you're car camping, you can buy a robust back-of-the-vehicle cook system that pumps out a bunch of power and acts almost like a replacement home kitchen range. On the other extreme, you can talk about cutting a stove out of a cat food tin and using denatured alcohol as the fuel. And are you bringing along a rack of lamb for a slow roast, or are you eating freeze-dried, pre-packaged meals, bars, and goos? It's pretty easy to find a perspective on the extremes of camp cooking, but it's actually pretty hard to find information for a family that doesn't want to be masochistic about either hiking or camping. We found that the pre-packaged, freeze-dried meals are really convenient, but they're also very high in salt, which is a big deal if you're not really working that hard and therefore not losing that much salt anyway. Eating those types of prepackaged and super convenient foods is what you do when food is more about taking in fuel and less about sharing experiences. And full-on cowboy cooking is kind of fun, and you can really share a lot when you're sitting around a campfire, but it's also really inconvenient while both cooking and cleaning, and that can stretch the patience of kids. Not to mention the ridiculous amount of weight that the food and supplies require you to bring in with you. For those of us who like to hike to our camps, and so aren't car camping, but also aren't through hiking, surely there's a balance to be had that makes for tasty and nutritious meals that are enjoyable to eat, but also packable over reasonable distances, while being no fuss in preparation and cleanup. Today, we're going to talk about just that. We're going to talk about some of the ways we make camp food enjoyable, but also family-friendly, think mess-free, and portable. The first question we often get when it comes to camp cooking is, how much food should we bring? This comes down to calories and weight per calorie. You can think of 100 calories per ounce or 100 calories per 30 grams as kind of a threshold or a rule of thumb in terms of converting calories to packed weight. And if you're doing a big backpacking through hike or a mountaineering expedition, things where weight really matters, and you're working really hard and burning through a lot of calories, then you're going to want to try and do better than 100 calories per ounce. And in fact, you're going to want 150 to 200 calories per ounce. But if you're moving just a little bit, say camping in one spot for a few days, you're not going to be burning so many calories. So you don't need to bring as many calories with you to replace those losses. And therefore, you don't really need to worry about reaching 100 calories per ounce or better. So in those circumstances, vegetables and fruit and other things that have higher water content and therefore more weight for each calorie delivered, they become more of an option. The big upside of that is, well, with more foods in play, you can eat better in terms of both nutrition and taste. At 100 calories per ounce, then, you can extrapolate 2,400 calories for 1.5 pounds of food, and 2.5 pounds of food is going to land you at about 4,000 calories. So you can do a quick rule of thumb around how much food you need to bring by doing some quick math around the net weight of the food that you're going to pack. So for a family of 4, like ours, we're going to expect around 6 pounds of food per day. Now, if you have teenagers, you already know that you should bring a lot more food along with you. That is, if you can get the teenagers to come along with you on the trip at all. And no, you actually don't subtract that much for having younger kids. 6-year-olds, for instance, are already eating about 1,600 calories a day because they're just growing so much. Add in keeping themselves warm and running all around the campsite, and they're going to burn through a number of calories. Once you know how much food to bring, you now have to think about cooking it. So we need to talk about stoves and fuel. And just like there are trade-offs between having a variety of foods and the extra weight that demands, there's also trade-offs with weight and the flexibility of the stove systems that are better for cooking. When it comes to stoves, we've already mentioned the extreme ends of the continuum, boondocking setups with multiple burners and the like at one end, and cat can alcohol stoves on the other end. But we can start bringing those extremes in towards a more workable, manageable system where you're finding the right balance point for your multi-day camping trips. Coming in from the big car camping or boondocking systems, there are bulkier but very robust liquid fuel stoves like the MSR XGK, which weighs about 13.2 ounces without the fuel. These are a mainstay of the mountaineering guide services, for instance, who need to cook for large groups of people and spend a lot of time turning snow into water. These are powerful, physically big enough to support a large pot, hard to break, but don't have a lot of nuance given they have no simmer control and no ability to feather the flame. From the ultralight end of the spectrum, we can talk about light canister stoves like the Snow Peak Gigapower, a 3.25 ounce stove that is great for one or maybe two people. It does have simmer control, but it isn't terribly efficient if you're cooking for a family or a large group. Then there are the integrated systems like the MSR reactor that specialize in turning snow into water because the integration of the stove with the pot minimizes heat loss. Now, comparing apples to apples, that is, removing the pot from the weight calculation, the reactor weighs 6.3 ounces, but the pot isn't really large enough to do a lot of cooking with. For me, the right balance point in terms of weight versus functionality for trips where cooking is part of the fun has been the MSR Dragonfly. The Dragonfly is a liquid fuel stove which is more weight effective than canister stoves because you don't have a large package of metal around every 8 ounces of fuel. But the downside of that is that it is harder to get a liquid fuel stove started than it is with a canister stove because you have to prime it. Now that's not a big deal if you're sitting in a comfortable camp, but it can be an annoyance if you're perched on the side of a mountain. Like the XGK, the Dragonfly can support a wide base larger pot, but unlike the XGK, it has the ability to feather the flame, making simmering and other more subtle cooking techniques possible. Now that additional functionality does come with a weight penalty, however. The Dragonfly weighs about an ounce more than the XGK. When it comes to fuel, you can follow some fairly simple rules of thumb. If you aren't melting snow to make water, count on about 4 ounces of fuel per person per day. Now, if you are melting snow for water, which, by the way, is a way more weight efficient way of carrying water in the winter, that is, don't carry water at all, but rather melt the snow and create water as you need it. When you are melting snow for water, count on as many as 8 ounces of fuel per person per day. But still, that 4 extra ounces per day is a lot less than the water you would be carrying in. Now, after figuring out how much of everything to bring, you can start to prepare your meals. This is way easier to do in the comfort of your home than it is out in the field, and particularly with kids. They probably aren't going to be very patient with a protracted meal preparation time when you're out at camp. So you can do a number of things at home to prep meals for a few days' trip. Keep in mind that these techniques are probably a bit unnecessary for a single day trip and don't really work for a trip that's going to be extended and for which food preservation is a logistical problem. First, do any slicing, dicing, mincing, pureeing, and the like while you have your small kitchen appliances, your good knives, and your substantial cutting boards, which is to say, at home. You can not only cut down on the time in the field you're going to be doing all of this, but also save a lot of equipment weight. You can also do marinades and dry rubs or whatever else you want to be doing in terms of spicing. Again, you save the mess, you add convenience, you cut down on packaging weight if you aren't bringing salt and pepper and other spices along with you into camp. Another great pre-camping option is to make soups. Any homemade soup that you prepare is going to have a lot less salt than store-bought. That in itself makes it worth it for us, but they're also very easy to reheat, which we'll discuss more in just a little bit. And finally, we like burritos and wraps and other grilled sandwiches. This has a lot to do with both ease of cooking and the fact that we have kids. All of these types of food come in their own edible pre-packaging, making them a lot less messy for kids than pulling things off of their plate or out of their bowl. They can just grab and bite. You can place a pat of butter on them too, and that butter will heat and spread when you cook it. We do grilled cheeses that way. And they're also adaptable to a variety of flavors, breakfast flavors, Latin flavors, Italian flavors, just to name a few. All of these foods can be frozen and carried into the field with little fuss. With these frozen foods, when it comes to cooking once you're in camp, you're basically reheating, which is less fussy, and quicker. And you can set yourself up for easy cleaning. The big takeaway is a very simple one. Aluminum foil is your friend. All of these burritos and wraps can be thrown right onto the grill without unwrapping them from the foil. You just need to turn them over frequently, but you end up with a semi-crispy texture on the outside, which our family finds really satisfying. Now, if you're heating up vegetables or some other filling, you can line your pot with the aluminum foil, just like you would your backyard grill at home, to keep from burning anything. Just keep in mind that the center of your pot is getting more direct heat, so you want to stir your food every few minutes. And soups just need to be submerged, while still in their bag, into boiling water. This makes for a super simple cleanup. For all of these things, having the adjustable flame control is really helpful. Obviously, the lower the heat, the more likely the insides of your foods that have been frozen are going to reheat before any of the outer edges burn. All of the ease that the foil provides for cooking pales in comparison to the benefits it provides for cleaning up. On multi-day trips, keep your pot clean, especially if you're in bear country. This is kind of a big deal. If you can't keep your pot clean, then you're needing to get your pot into your bear canister, and in addition, each time you cook with it, any remaining food is getting hard baked onto the pot, making it even more difficult to keep clean, and it becomes this downward spiral. Cooking with the aluminum foil or by boiling bagged soups and soft foods to reheat them means that you're only having to bear-proof the foil and the bags, and you deal with those the same way you would deal with the wrappers of your bars and goos and other grab-and-go foods. Nonetheless, some spills and other small issues will happen, so we bring with us a very simple cleaning system: a Brillo pad, a handkerchief, and Dr. Bonner's soap. If you aren't scouring pots and pans after every meal because either your food or your pot is lined with aluminum foil, then a single Brillo pad, which weighs 0.3 ounces, will easily last multiple days. It's there simply to scrape off any tougher to remove spills. A handkerchief is easy to find, very inexpensive, weighs only 0.9 ounces, and becomes your drying cloth. Sure, you can buy a super absorbent microfiber towel, and that can be worth it for longer trips, but the expense and the extra weight, it weighs 3.1 ounces, hasn't really been worth it for us on shorter trips. And for soap, we want something that is concentrated, so we don't need much of it, and something that's biodegradable and environmentally friendly. So we've chosen Dr. Bonner's, which comes in 2.0 ounce packages, as well as larger options for home use. So our cooking plan for these short but camping-focused trips are about finding the right balance between convenience and enjoyable and nutritious food. For us, the convenience factor really shows up with the cooking and cleaning time. Our boys want to be able to run around and experience nature. They honestly start to lose patience with cooking and cleaning efforts that take a long time. And at the same time, we don't feel like we need to have a lot of highly processed foods when we aren't really needing to count ounces. Yes, we want light stuff that's easy to carry, but it's not like weight becomes the primary consideration like it would for more ambitious objectives. So we want to have some food that's still tasty and reasonably nutritious. Hopefully then you've picked up a few tips that'll help you eat better, but also eat conveniently when you're out camping with the family. Maybe this helps you lighten up enough that you're no longer wed to your car's location, but hasn't gone so far in the other direction that food is really just about fuel and less about shared experiences. If you found anything useful in this video, please hit that like button and share it with anyone who you know might be interested. We'd certainly appreciate it. If you got any tips or favorite recipes you'd like to share, please do so in the comments. And don't forget that you can find additional information related to this and all of our videos by visiting our website at www.shortguysbetaworks.com. The link's in the description below. If you want to ring that bell and subscribe, you'll be alerted every time we release a new video. We produce how-to and educational videos like this one, which is a part of our continuing camping series, as well as other short films about our family adventures. And we release something every week. And finally, we want to help you get the most out of our channel. So if you have any ideas for content you'd like to see, drop those suggestions in the comments section too. So until next time, keep on getting more out of that big outside.